Welcome to CommunityForce's Exploring Higher Ed, a series of discussions with various thought leaders and other professional voices, talking on a range of topics relating to the higher education industry. I'm Saira Sohail, and we're glad you could join us today. In this episode, our discussion with Dr. Davis continues as we take on sensitive topics such as, what is the primary purpose of a university? Is it a business or something else? Is today's curriculum relevant to a student's future success in life beyond school, for example, career and workforce readiness? And is college even worth it? Your feedback and comments are always welcome, and we invite you to connect with us directly or through our social media channels. Until then, enjoy. There's a general belief that the college bachelor's degree has become today's high school diploma. Students today know that a high school diploma isn't going to be nearly enough to ensure professional success. While going to college was once an option, it's now become almost a necessity, causing students to do whatever it takes to get into and pay for college, even if that means going into debt. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, and this leads into a general question that people often get asked, is this college worth it? Let's be clear. Even with debt, the income generated by a college graduate far surpasses by multiple folds those by non-college graduates. Now, having said that, there are exceptions to this. And so, as I had somebody remind me that you can go out and be a truck driver. Matter of fact, I spent time on this trip that I took with U17 soccer girls this past weekend, and I survived it. And I spent some time talking to the bus driver who for 40 years drove an 18-wheeler, and we were talking about this. Sure. You can make good money. You can easily make over-the-road long hauling. You can make $80,000 a year easily with a signing bonus. Sure. No college degree required. Yeah. At the same time, you can go become a nurse, and your starting salary as a nurse is probably going to be about $65,000 a year. So I want to be clear, not everything requires a college degree. Sure. However, in our society, the data shows is that over the course of a lifetime, a college degree makes you eligible and gives you options that were not available to you. And I'm not even going to go into the whole conversation about, well, you need to study in this area, need to study in that area. Yeah. There is something about the maturation process in the U.S. that requires that college experience, because it is often the first time where a lot of people in the U.S. actually leave home. And then the socialization that comes. There are skills that come from being at a university that you cannot get online. You can't get from a MOOC. Sure. That you need to be on campus. Yeah. And how many of us, you went to a great institution, there's a great basketball team. Yeah. Part of the fun of going there is seeing that. People say, well, what does that have to do with job? The reality is that in the work world, it is our ability to interact and get along well with others. So a university experience is both content-based and context-based. Yes. And so even at Shenandoah University, we have 22% of our students are international students. A large percentage of them from Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And so we're in the Shenandoah Valley, as you mentioned. Where else in the Shenandoah Valley are you going to meet somebody from Saudi Arabia unless you come to the university? And then in the world in which we live in, it's important to make those type of necessary to have dialogue. Sure. And so on both an enrichment perspective, because you can go look up the data that a college degree will earn you $1 million more over the course of a lifetime than not having one. Mm-hmm. But on the personal level, just to be able to meet and talk with somebody, because quite frankly in this country, for the most part, we still lead very separate. I won't say segregated because that's forced, but we lead very separate lives. Sure. We tend to live with people who are like us, however we define us. And so we live with people who are like us economically, so-called racially, religiously. This is who we socialize with. And there are only two places that provide the option for us to meet people who are different from us. One is the workplace. But in order to get into the workplace, you have to go to that other place, which is a university. Sure. Yeah. And so it's important to do that for those who want to do it. And I want to be clear, going back to where we started from, I don't think that everyone needs to go to university. However, for those who want to go, there should be funds made available.
Sure, yeah.
And so there are those who say that that's a private benefit. And this is part of the argument why we're seeing a cutback in federal funds for universities. And I will tell you my story only because it's relevant to the situation. I grew up very poor, and I grew up lacking some of the social things that people have these days.
Sure.
If it was not for education, it's very easily that I could have become a burden and a drain on society, as opposed to a person who pays a significant amount of money in taxes,
sure.
And proudly does so. Because I think that we have to contribute to the overall well-being of the society in which we live in.
Right.
And I was given a chance through education to do that, and that's why it's important, and it is worth it for those to pursue and become a better person. It's not just vocational training, but to be exposed to ideals and thinking. When education is done well, it transforms the person. It makes you a better person, and it exposes you to a world that is different than the world in which you came from.
Right. You talked a little bit about how there's a growing number of enrollment in universities, and we've heard of some employers feeling compelled to create universities or training sessions for college graduates. I mean, is that just an anomaly, or is it a growing concern that students aren't really fully prepared to be in these positions? Or, I mean, if you major in a subject, how come that isn't enough when you're at college?
That's a very good question, and that's an excellent question that is not being addressed. And quite frankly, I put most of that blame on the universities. And universities sometimes forget what they're in business for.
Yeah.
That a university does not exist to serve the needs of the professors. A university exists to serve and educate students. And thereby, you need to be at a place which has the ability to bridge the gap between theory and practice.
Sure.
And unfortunately, some universities or some programs or some professors on a micro level, they learned what they learned a long time ago, or they've never been in the field in which they're in. They can't provide any advice.
Okay.
I will not hire, as a dean, I will not hire somebody that cannot teach, who doesn't do research and doesn't have work experience. That's not normal, because most universities focus on one of those three, and that's research.
Yeah.
And so that means that when you come in, this person has a lot of theoretical knowledge, but they may or may not have worked in industry. It may increase the standing of the university, but it does nothing to prepare the student once they've gotten out of that university to go for a job. And then the other part of that is one of the things that we're blessed with in our business schools, that we have a very strong advisory board. And so our advisory board works with students to place them in jobs and then informs us from an educational perspective, what are the skills that are needed to be successful in that area.
Yeah.
And then it's the mentoring and helping students be successful. The reason that you see people not coming out prepared is because they're being taught by curriculum that is no longer relevant to the world in which they're going in, or it is so watered down that it has no direct application. When you leave a school, in my opinion, you should be able to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how are you measuring what you can do? And so one of the oldest ways in which that's been done, which was started by Harvard Business School, I'll give them credit for doing it, but we do it here at Shenandoah University, we use case studies. We also encourage internships. It allows you to take a look and see whether somebody can do what it is that said that they've done. We also do assurance of learning, which is what we're supposed to learn and then what was done.
Okay.
Every institution does not do this. And so thereby some companies have hired people where they could not do anything. But I would say that there's a simple solution to this. And you know what the simple solution is? Is that the university needs to engage the business to find out where the trends are, what's happening.
Okay.
And so, for instance, one of the changes that we're making here, directly related to that, is in our field what was called IST. Or first of all, it was called Information Systems and Computer Technology. Okay. Well, that term is dead. I mean, it's part of why Radio Shack went out of business. You know, if it's still called Radio Shack, there's a problem right there. Okay. So then we took it in part, called it information systems technology. And then the professor looked at this and said, nah, it's a different world. So what we did was restructure that program and use the core of that to introduce a program on data analytics, because that's emerged as a big field. People know it. We're working with AIG. One of our graduates of our MBA program is the chief data officer for AIG. So they came down and supported us and became engaged with the university. This is what students need to learn. And right now we're also doing that. We're also looking at the issues around cybersecurity. Is that we've teamed up with a business that's involved with projects of national security. Can't go into a lot of details about what it is they're doing, but the reality is that it's a connection.
Okay.
And then the other part of that is something that universities, quite frankly, overall are not very good at. And in this way, the university is sort of like the government. The university is good at starting things. It's very bad at shutting those things down.
Okay.
And so if something is outdated, you need to eliminate it. And I will say that we do that here. It makes us a different type of place. We'll look at create programs, but we'll also look, your enrollment's not there. The market has shifted this direction. We don't have a tenure system, which guarantees people a job. And that's fine and well. But from a business perspective, you have to have the ability to remove people from a role if they can't shift the role. Imagine that. Imagine hiring a person who carried blocks of ice and then the refrigerator comes into existence. They can't become refrigerator repairmen, but you still have to carry the guy who carries blocks of ice, even though nobody's using blocks of ice anymore. Right. Think about that for a second. So this is an educational issue, that education needs to be adaptive and responsive.
Stay current.
And stay current to what's happening in the external market and what's happening for students, even from a pedagogical standpoint, by a learning perspective. Let's face it. You might want to argue with me about this, but your generation doesn't exactly have the longest attention span. In general, I'm not saying that you don't have attention span, but in general, so you're used to looking at 2 or 3 minute clips on YouTube, and not as many people are reading longer series of books and everything else. So I think about this, and so to stand up in a class and lecture to you, you go to sleep, right? You don't have to tell me. You have to school you graduate now. So the nature of how we deliver what it is we deliver has to change also. So, education needs to think about how it interacts with students, which goes to your question about how companies have to do something different. Educators need to think about how they need to do something different and get a hands-on experiential endeavor that allows them to do something other than sit in the seat and be killed by death by PowerPoints with somebody droning on and a monolithic voice looking down the paper. We have to do something different too.
Okay, so last question.
Sure.
And you've kind of explored this a little bit in your answers, but if you were to build the perfect college student, what would they have?
The perfect college student. Well, you know what? That's a tough question for me. And the reason I say that is this. I believe, quite frankly, it's in the mission of Shandor University, and I believe in what we refer to as transformative learning.
Okay.
And transformative learning to me is starting with that piece of coal, applying pressure and producing a diamond. Mm-hmm. Starting with that worm, putting it in a cocoon, producing a butterfly. That's transformative. Transformative is not taking a diamond with a little bit of dust on, brushing it off, and sending it out the door, which is what a lot of institutions do. Transformative is meeting students where they live. And so you come in, so to me, the ideal student is the one who wants to learn.
Okay.
It's as complicated or as simple as that.
Yeah.
If you show up at the door and you want to learn and you're willing to put in the time to provide opportunity, I don't want you, well, I won't say I won't want you. That's not the best word. I will say that learning enables you to engage in adaptability. Mm-hmm. Learning vocational skills only prepares you for present jobs, doesn't prepare you for future jobs.
Sure.
You're using technology right now to conduct this interview that wasn't even in existence 10 years ago.
Right.
So you have an iPad with various programs on it. You got a Bluetooth. Bluetooth wasn't even existent.
Yeah.
You got a camera that can take still pictures as well as record video and a chip and upload. none of that stuff was in existence.
Sure.
So imagine if all you learned was photography. On film.
Sure.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So the thing is to develop the aesthetics around that and understand the bigger principles. And so the simple answer to your question, as complicated as it is the ideal student is the one who wants to learn. Because then they engage the system. You show up with a curiosity. And then that curiosity serves you, because if you show up and you don't know what questions to ask, you can never get answers. Okay. If all you teach are the answers, the answer may change. And I see that. So I'm looking over at the corner of my eye. I just caught a glimpse of a book that I have on my shelf called Good to Great. And inside of that book was a company called Circuit City.
Okay.
The CEO and the son of the founder has come to speak here. He has a book called From Good to Great to Gone.
Okay.
And what he talks about, so even a company that was listed as one of the best companies in the world is gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. So you have to adapt to changing times. And so it's learning to ask the right questions. And again, Radio Shack didn't ask the right questions. Circuit City didn't ask the right questions. It's funny now because I see Aeropostale, which is a clothing line for teens, didn't adapt with their audience.
Yeah.
They're Abercrombie and Fitch is in trouble. Shopping malls in general are in trouble. We've gone from the suburbanization of America to the urbanization of America. People want to live in cities now where they have easy access to things. If you're not paying attention to those trends, and you're in business, you're likely to be out of business.
Right.
Education needs to do it, and then students need to be aware to ask questions so they can learn how to think. That they don't just come in and learn how to use a tool which may largely become irrelevant in 10 years.
They need to learn
how to think.
Okay.
All
right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time and
Thank
talking to you about that.
The insights. All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Exploring Higher Ed. If you have any suggestions, questions, or other feedback, feel free to comment below. For further information on CommunityForce, please visit us at www.communityforce.com. To learn more about Scholar Swag, visit www.scholarswag.com.